The Jacksonian era, spanning from the 1820s to the 1840s, marks a pivotal period in U.S. history characterized by the rise of Andrew Jackson and his profound influence on American democracy. Andrew Jackson, the seventh president of the United States, championed the idea of the common man, advocating for greater political participation among ordinary citizens. His presidency heralded a shift away from elitist politics, promoting the notion that government should be more responsive to the needs and desires of the general populace. This democratization of politics not only expanded suffrage to more white males, but also laid the groundwork for the modern political landscape, where the voices of diverse groups began to gain prominence. The significance of the Jacksonian era is particularly evident in the evolution of political parties during this time. Jackson's leadership helped to solidify the Democratic Party, which emerged as a powerful force in American politics, contrasting sharply with the Whig Party that arose in opposition to Jacksonian policies. This period saw the establishment of party conventions and a more organized approach to campaigning, which would shape the future of American electoral politics. Jackson's policies, however, were not without controversy and had far-reaching impacts on various groups within society. His approach to governance included the implementation of the Indian Removal Act, which forcibly displaced thousands of Native Americans from their ancestral lands, leading to the tragic Trail of Tears. This policy exemplified the darker side of Jackson's legacy, highlighting the conflict between the expansion of democracy for some and the oppression of others. Additionally, Jackson's stance on issues such as the Bank of the United States and his opposition to federal intervention in the economy resonated with many farmers and working-class citizens who felt marginalized by the existing financial elite. Yet, his policies also drew criticism from abolitionists and those advocating for the rights of enslaved individuals, as Jackson's administration maintained a pro-slavery stance that would have lasting implications for the nation. In summary, the Jacksonian era was a transformative time in American history, marked by Andrew Jackson's influence on democracy, the emergence of modern political parties, and the complex impact of his policies on various societal groups. Understanding this era is crucial for grasping the evolution of American political identity and the ongoing struggles for equality and representation that continue to shape the nation today. The evolution of voting rights in the United States leading up to the Jacksonian era reflects a complex journey toward a more inclusive democracy. Initially, the concept of democracy in the U.S. was limited, primarily benefiting white, land-owning men. The Founding Fathers established a republic that emphasized the rights of property owners, effectively excluding large segments of the population, including women, African Americans, and those without property. This narrow definition of citizenship meant that political power was concentrated in the hands of a privileged elite, creating a system that was far from representative of the broader populace. As the nation grew and societal values began to shift, calls for a more inclusive democracy gained momentum. The early 19th century saw a growing recognition of the need to expand voting rights beyond the wealthy elite. This period was marked by a burgeoning sense of individualism and the belief that government should reflect the will of the people. Andrew Jackson emerged as a pivotal figure during this transformative time, advocating for the rights of the common man. His presidency, beginning in 1829, symbolized a significant departure from the elitist politics of the past. Jackson's rise to power was fueled by his appeal to the working class and his commitment to expanding suffrage. He championed the idea that all white men, regardless of property ownership, should have the right to vote, which led to a series of state-level reforms that gradually dismantled property requirements for voting. This shift marked a crucial transition from elite control to broader public participation in the political process. Jackson's influence was instrumental in the establishment of the Democratic Party, which sought to represent the interests of ordinary citizens and promote greater political engagement. The era witnessed the introduction of nominating conventions and a more organized approach to campaigning, further encouraging public involvement in politics. As a result, voter turnout increased significantly, reflecting a growing sense of empowerment among the electorate. However, it is essential to recognize that this expansion of voting rights was not universal. While Jackson's policies opened the door for many white men, they did not extend to women, African Americans, or Native Americans who remained disenfranchised. The Jacksonian era, therefore, represents both progress and limitation in the evolution of voting rights. In summary, the journey toward a more inclusive democracy in the U.S., leading up to the Jacksonian era, was marked by significant changes in voting rights, driven by the ideals of individualism and the push for broader public participation, with Andrew Jackson playing a crucial role in this transformative process. Andrew Jackson's background and rise to power are integral to understanding his complex legacy in American history. Born on March 15, 1767, in the Waxhaws region between North and South Carolina, Jackson grew up in a modest family. His early life was marked by hardship. His father died shortly before he was born, and his mother raised him and his two brothers in a challenging environment. Despite these difficulties, Jackson's tenacity and ambition propelled him forward. He became a lawyer in Tennessee, where he quickly established himself as a prominent figure in the community. His reputation as a fierce and determined individual began to take shape during this time, setting the stage for his future endeavors. Jackson's military career played a crucial role in his rise to prominence. He gained significant recognition during the War of 1812, particularly for his leadership in the Battle of New Orleans in 1815. His decisive victory against the British not only showcased his military prowess, but also solidified his status as a national hero. This triumph resonated with the American public, who viewed him as a symbol of resilience and strength. Jackson's fame from the war translated into political capital, and he leveraged this popularity to launch his political career, eventually becoming a key player in the emerging Democratic Party. However, Jackson's legacy is not without controversy. His tenure as a slave owner and his aggressive policies toward Native Americans have sparked significant debate among historians and scholars. Jackson owned numerous slaves throughout his life, and his plantation in Tennessee relied heavily on their labor. This aspect of his life reflects the broader societal norms of his time, but also highlights the moral complexities of his character. Furthermore, Jackson's policies regarding Native Americans, particularly his support for the Indian Removal Act of 1830, have drawn considerable criticism. This legislation led to the forced relocation of thousands of Native Americans from their ancestral lands, resulting in immense suffering and loss of life, most notably exemplified by the Trail of Tears. In examining Jackson's background and rise to power, it becomes clear that he was a multifaceted figure whose actions had lasting implications for the nation. His military successes and populist appeal helped shape the political landscape of the early 19th century, while his controversial legacy as a slave owner and Indian fighter continues to provoke discussion about the moral dimensions of leadership. Jackson's life story encapsulates the complexities of American history, illustrating the tension between democratic ideals and the realities of power, privilege, and oppression. Ultimately, Andrew Jackson remains a pivotal figure whose influence is felt in both the triumphs and tragedies of the American narrative. The establishment of the Democratic Party under Andrew Jackson marked a significant transformation in the American political landscape during the early 19th century. Before Jackson's presidency, the political environment was dominated by the Federalist and Democratic Republican parties, with the latter emerging as the primary force after the decline of the Federalists. However, by the 1820s, the Democratic-Republican Party began to fracture, leading to a more fragmented political scene. Internal divisions arose over issues such as states' rights, economic policy, and the role of the federal government, creating an opportunity for new political movements to emerge. Jackson, a prominent figure within the Democratic-Republican Party, capitalized on this discontent, positioning himself as a champion of the common man and a critic of the political elite. The 1828 election was a pivotal moment in American history, marking the first time a candidate ran on a platform that explicitly appealed to the masses. Jackson's victory over incumbent President John Quincy Adams was not just a personal triumph. It represented a broader shift in political power. The election was characterized by intense campaigning and a focus on populist themes, with Jackson portraying himself as a man of the people in contrast to Adams, who was seen as part of the entrenched elite. This election mobilized a diverse coalition of voters, including farmers, laborers, and urban workers who felt marginalized by the existing political system. Jackson's win signaled the rise of a new political order, one that prioritized the voices of ordinary citizens and sought to dismantle the barriers that had previously restricted their participation in governance. Under Jackson's leadership, the Democratic Party emerged as a powerful political force dedicated to expanding the franchise and promoting populism. The party's platform emphasized the importance of individual rights and the belief that government should be responsive to the will of the people. Jackson and his supporters advocated for the removal of property requirements for voting, which allowed a broader segment of white men to participate in elections. This expansion of suffrage was a significant step toward a more inclusive democracy, although it still excluded women, African Americans, and Native Americans. The Democratic Party also embraced a populist approach, positioning itself as the defender of the common man against the perceived threats posed by the elite and established institutions. Jackson's administration implemented policies aimed at reducing the influence of the national bank and promoting economic opportunities for ordinary citizens. This commitment to populism resonated with many Americans, solidifying the Democratic Party's identity as a champion of the people. In summary, the establishment of the Democratic Party under Jackson was a transformative development in American politics, characterized by a shift from elite control to broader public participation. The significance of the 1828 election and Jackson's victory cannot be overstated, as they laid the groundwork for a political movement dedicated to expanding the franchise and embracing populist ideals, shaping the trajectory of American democracy for years to come. Andrew Jackson's implementation of the spoils system marked a significant shift in the way government appointments were handled in the United States. The spoils system, defined as the practice of rewarding political supporters with government jobs, was rooted in the belief that elected officials had the right to appoint their allies to positions of power. Jackson firmly believed that this approach would promote loyalty and ensure that the government reflected the will of the people. Upon taking office in 1829, he swiftly replaced a substantial number of federal employees with his loyal supporters, arguing that this practice would invigorate the government and make it more responsive to the electorate. The impact of the spoils system on government appointments was profound. By prioritizing loyalty over experience or qualifications, Jackson's administration ushered in a new era of political patronage. This led to a significant turnover in government positions, with many skilled officials being dismissed in favor of individuals who had supported Jackson's campaign. While Jackson and his supporters viewed this as a necessary step to democratize the government, critics argued that it undermined the professionalism and efficiency of public service. The influx of unqualified individuals into key positions often resulted in mismanagement and inefficiency, raising concerns about the overall effectiveness of the government. The political ramifications of replacing officials with loyal supporters were far-reaching. Jackson's approach fostered a culture of partisanship, where loyalty to the party became paramount. This shift not only solidified the Democratic Party's power, but also created a divisive political environment, as opposition parties began to adopt similar practices in response. The spoils system contributed to the entrenchment of political factions, making it increasingly difficult for bipartisan cooperation and governance. As a result, the political landscape became more polarized, with loyalty to party often overshadowing the pursuit of effective policymaking. Jackson's presidency was not without its controversies and scandals, many of which were exacerbated by the spoils system. One notable scandal was the Petticoat Affair, which revolved around the social ostracism of Peggy Eaton, the wife of Jackson's Secretary of War. The scandal highlighted the personal rivalries and tensions within Jackson's administration, as well as the broader societal norms regarding gender and class. Additionally, the practice of appointing loyal supporters led to allegations of corruption and favoritism, as many appointees were accused of using their positions for personal gain. In summary, Jackson's implementation of the spoils system fundamentally altered the landscape of government appointments in the United States. While it aimed to promote loyalty and democratize the political process, it also resulted in significant challenges, including inefficiency, partisanship, and scandals. The legacy of the spoils system continues to influence discussions about political patronage and the balance between loyalty and competence in public service, reflecting the complexities of Jackson's presidency and its impact on American governance. The conflict between Andrew Jackson and the Second National Bank was a defining aspect of his presidency and had lasting implications for the American economy. Jackson's opposition to the bank stemmed from his belief that it represented a concentration of economic power that threatened the liberties of ordinary citizens. He viewed the Second National Bank as an institution that favored the wealthy elite and undermined the principles of democracy. Jackson argued that the bank's control over the nation's currency and credit allowed it to wield undue influence over the economy and government, creating a system that was inherently corrupt and unresponsive to the needs of the common man. The political battles surrounding the bank's rechartering were intense and contentious. The Second National Bank, chartered in 1816, was set to expire in 1836, but its president, Nicholas Biddle, sought to renew its charter 4 years early in 1832. Jackson's opponents, primarily from the Whig Party and among the banking elite, supported the bank's rechartering, arguing that it was essential for maintaining economic stability and regulating credit. In contrast, Jackson viewed the push for rechartering as a direct challenge to his authority and a threat to the democratic ideals he championed. He famously declared, "The bank is trying to kill me, but I will kill it." This statement encapsulated his determination to dismantle the institution. The political struggle culminated in a fierce campaign, with Jackson rallying public support against the bank. He utilized his populist appeal to frame the issue as a battle between the common people and the privileged elite. In the 1832 presidential election, Jackson's opposition to the bank became a central theme, and he won decisively, further legitimizing his stance. Following his victory, Jackson took decisive action by vetoing the recharter bill, effectively sealing the bank's fate. He subsequently ordered the withdrawal of federal funds from the bank, redistributing them to various state banks, which were often referred to as pet banks. The consequences of the bank's demise were significant and far-reaching. In the short term, the removal of federal funds from the Second National Bank led to a surge in state banking and an increase in the issuance of banknotes, contributing to a period of economic expansion. However, this rapid growth was not without its pitfalls. The lack of a central banking authority resulted in a chaotic banking environment, characterized by speculation and a lack of regulation. This ultimately contributed to the Panic of 1837, a severe economic downturn marked by bank failures, high unemployment, and widespread financial instability. In summary, the conflict between Jackson and the Second National Bank was rooted in Jackson's belief that the bank threatened democratic principles and favored the elite. The political battles surrounding its rechartering highlighted the deep divisions in American society at the time. Ultimately, the bank's demise had profound consequences for the economy, leading to both short-term growth and long-term instability, illustrating the complexities of Jackson's legacy and the ongoing debates about the role of banking in American life. The tensions between federal authority and states' rights in the early 19th century were epitomized by the Nullification crisis in South Carolina, a significant event that tested the limits of federal power and state sovereignty. The origins of this crisis can be traced back to the Tariff of 1828, often referred to as the Tariff of Abominations. This tariff imposed high duties on imported goods, which angered many southern states, particularly South Carolina, where the economy relied heavily on agriculture and trade. Southern leaders argued that the tariff disproportionately benefited northern manufacturers at the expense of southern consumers and producers. In response to this perceived injustice, South Carolina adopted the doctrine of nullification, asserting that states had the right to invalidate federal laws they deemed unconstitutional. The situation escalated when South Carolina declared the tariff null and void within its borders in 1832, threatening to secede from the Union if the federal government attempted to enforce it. This bold move posed a direct challenge to federal authority and raised questions about the balance of power between the states and the national government. Andrew Jackson, who had a strong belief in preserving the Union, viewed the nullification as a dangerous precedent that could lead to disunity and chaos. He firmly opposed the idea that states could unilaterally reject federal laws, arguing that such actions undermined the very foundation of the nation. In response to the challenge of state nullification, Jackson took decisive action. He issued a proclamation in December 1832, asserting the supremacy of federal law and denouncing the nullification doctrine as a threat to the Union. Jackson emphasized that the federal government had the authority to enforce its laws and that any attempt by a state to nullify federal legislation would not be tolerated. To further demonstrate his commitment to maintaining federal authority, he dispatched federal troops to South Carolina and prepared to use military force if necessary. This show of strength underscored Jackson's determination to uphold the Constitution and preserve the Union. The significance of the nullification crisis in shaping federal-state relations cannot be overstated. It highlighted the ongoing struggle between advocates of states' rights and proponents of a strong federal government. The crisis ultimately led to a compromise, with Congress passing a new tariff that gradually reduced duties, while South Carolina rescinded its nullification ordinance. However, the underlying tensions remained, foreshadowing future conflicts over states' rights, particularly regarding issues such as slavery and civil rights. In summary, the nullification crisis in South Carolina was a critical moment in American history that underscored the tensions between federal authority and states' rights. Jackson's firm response to the challenge of nullification reinforced the principle of federal supremacy and set a precedent for future federal interventions in state matters. The crisis not only shaped the dynamics of federal-state relations, but also laid the groundwork for ongoing debates about the balance of power in the United States, reflecting the complexities of governance in a diverse and rapidly evolving nation. In this video, we explored the multifaceted legacy of Andrew Jackson's presidency and its lasting impact on American politics. Jackson, as a pivotal figure in the early 19th century, championed the cause of the common man, advocating for greater political participation and the expansion of voting rights for white males. His presidency marked a significant shift in the political landscape, leading to the establishment of the Democratic Party and the embrace of populist ideals. However, this era was also characterized by deep contradictions. particularly regarding issues of race and class, as many marginalized groups remained disenfranchised. One of the key points discussed was Jackson's implementation of the spoils system, which prioritized loyalty over qualifications in government appointments. While this approach aimed to democratize the political process, it also led to inefficiencies and controversies, highlighting the complexities of governance. Additionally, we examined the conflict between Jackson and the Second National Bank, where his fierce opposition to what he perceived as an institution favoring the elite resulted in significant economic consequences, including the Panic of 1837. The Nullification crisis in South Carolina further illustrated the tensions between federal authority and states' rights, showcasing Jackson's commitment to preserving the Union in the face of challenges to federal supremacy. These events collectively underscore the intricate balance of power in American democracy and the ongoing struggles that define it. As we reflect on Jackson's presidency, it is essential to consider the complexities of democracy and governance. Jackson's legacy prompts us to think critically about the ideals of representation and the realities of political power. While he expanded access to the political process for some, his administration also perpetuated systems of oppression that marginalized others. This duality invites viewers to engage in discussions about the evolution of democracy in the United States and the lessons we can learn from history. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel for more insightful historical content, as we continue to explore the rich tapestry of American history and its implications for contemporary society. If you found this video informative, please like and share it with others who may be interested in understanding the complexities of our past. Your support helps us create more engaging content that fosters a deeper appreciation for history and its relevance today. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to bringing you more fascinating discussions in the future.